'Twas the night of Christmas, and under the tree, a special game lied just for me. A Christmas delight, oh what a special treat, something I could not wait to beat. Though dressed as your dad's DMC, but merrier, this dear viewer was far scarier. An action game of PS2 Constitution left me at odds with my own resolution. Do I play, do I not? The thoughts begin to plot. Surely this game could not take a whole lot. Of lights and of heavies, attacks they do fly. But being just me, I am only one guy. A miracle on Christmas is far too absurd. But hold up now, I'm getting the word. Saint Nick has passed onto me this task, and being Santa, I'll do as he asks. But how could I talk about this game on such short time? Well, dear viewer, I'll do it with rhyme. Nah, I'm just messing with you. I can't keep this up for a whole video. Are you kidding me? Shout out to my friend Michael Badlad, who wrote that opening for me on short notice. Nightmare Before Christmas is one of the quintessential holiday movies. It's the one you get to pick out and subject your family to after you are forced to watch Elf for the 800th time. It has one of the coolest visual aesthetics and art directions ever. It's already the best Disney World in every Kingdom Hearts game it's featured in, so of course Disney cashed in on this and licensed a PlayStation 2 action game. And they got Capcom. Huh? Yeah, let's get it out of the way right now that this is a Capcom action game that shares a lot of design choices from Devil May Cry 1 and 3. And everyone else has already made the "this is the real Devil May Cry 2" joke before. This is like if FromSoft or Sandlot, the developers behind Robotic Alchemic Drive, made an Iron Giant mech game. Shit, now I really wish that exists. Hang on a sec, let me go back in time and make sure that happened, along with getting a Digimon Frontier character action game. Weirdly enough, initially you wouldn't know that this is a Capcom game unless you looked at the back of the box to find their logo. I find it strange when games don't have the studio that actually made the game on the front of the box. Instead, we have Buena Vista Studios, which is the name that the Disney game division was called between 2003 and 7. The same thing happened with Capcom's Gundam game Mobile Suit Gundam Federation vs. Zeon, and this one is even weirder because they don't even have the Capcom logo on the box anywhere or in the credits. They just include it in the copyright text that no one reads on the back of the box and in the intro credit font instead of their actual yellow and blue logo when you boot the game up. This game is so incredibly soulful. It nails everything I loved about the movie. The visuals are perfect. Look at how hard this game overscreen goes. It's so cool to be able to interact with the world of Nightmare Before Christmas in a 3D space. I don't know how to describe it other than just everything looks right. The game is up there with the King Kong the movie The Game and Golden Knight Garo as one of the most faithful licensed games out there. It's got a somewhat fixed perspective as the camera will follow you like Silent Hill more so than Resident Evil. This leads to some great looking shots. The menus are super charming. They're efficient, but they still have personality that represents the source material. I love how the health bar are these little pumpkins, even if it isn't always the clearest how many hits you can actually take. The music is great, which I sadly don't think I could play any without it getting copyright striked, though you will likely be sick of This Is Halloween by the end of the game since it's the main combat theme outside of bosses and a few remixes. Personally, I love the song and never got sick of it. If I was going to at any point, it probably would have been during one of my thousands of rewatches as a kid, but I recognize that this won't be the same for everybody. The sound design is overall pretty good, but I can't help but think of the broke alert anytime the siren starts playing in the game. Broke nigga alert. Broke nigga alert. The other thing you will likely get sick of hearing very fast is the voice line Jack says every time you press triangle to activate your Nero snatch grab attack. It's probably the one thing that you've heard about this game besides that it's a DMC clone. This green elastic snot around your wrist is your primary weapon you're going to be using throughout the game, and it plays that line every single time you press triangle, and you're gonna be doing that a lot. The thing that really got under my skin about the Soul Robber is that you have to hear it more than you otherwise would have if the range wasn't terrible and the grab detection wasn't even worse. See, while people call this game a DMC clone, it sadly has a lot less in common with this game when you look under the hood. On the surface, it has form changes, post-mission grading, a combo style meter, secret missions, a taunt, a blue orb analog, hell, even Agni and Rudra are here, but the combat is sadly really shallow. Don't get me wrong, the game is still fun and I enjoyed playing it, it's just that it's like Space Sheriff Spirits where it unfortunately traded off having more than one combo for being visually spot on to the source material. It takes until the final of 3 upgrades to your Soul Robber to give your combo a launcher combo finisher, but the recovery is so long from that final swing that you can only ever get a single hit on said launched enemies, if you're even lucky to begin with. Like I already mentioned, you have a combo meter with style rankings, but all you have to do is just hit enemies over and over again, so it's really not hard to rack up high combo counts as long as there are enough enemies to stun lock to death. It doesn't even punish you for getting hit, to give you an idea of how relaxed it is in this game. Your singular combo is a bit stiff, and who you are targeting is dictated by an auto-lock arrow above enemies' heads. This is the same arrow that swaps between environmental objects that you can interact with, like the hooks you can swing on or the tombstones that you can lift back into place. If you are fighting enemies around these, then the lock-on has a habit of making you prioritize them, which will leave you swinging at the air. I'm pretty sure the range of your Soul Robber is increased with levels, but I swear that its range fluctuates on a dime, and there are plenty of times where I just can't hit enemies, even though it feels like I should. Maybe my hitbox or their hurtbox have some weird disjointedness to them, but there's definitely something up which is making the combat feel a lot less smooth than it could be. It's the worst during the barrel fight in the giant pumpkin, where 90% of the time I just couldn't hit him, until I ended up dying and had to walk my ass back all the way to the town and max out the Soul Robber, where the 4th hit launcher attack would stun lock the little bastard and made light work of him. I guess it's just action game tradition to make the flying enemies the most annoying, and sadly there isn't any way to 2-tap the Sin Scissor analog like there is in DMC1. The other thing that makes the combat not feel smooth is that the red orb equivalent that is dropped by enemies does not automatically fly to you and has a non-existent pickup range. The two ways you can get them to come to you is using your Soul Robber to swing over them, which isn't always accurate from my experience, or you do the swirl attack, which has little range and does pitiful damage. The orbs time out super fast, so I always felt really pressured to be trying to pick them up, since a lot of the upgrades are super expensive. One thing I really like about the boss fights is how musical they are. When you hit bosses, music notes fly out of them to fill this meter below your health bar. Once it's filled, you will see a countdown to starting a QTE rhythm minigame. The difficulty of this ranges pretty wildly between bosses. Sometimes it's made for babies like you would expect an E-rated licensed game based on a children's movie, and then it goes really fast and has me wondering, how did they expect children to beat this? Like I literally only beat the final boss with 1 HP left. I acknowledge that I am terrible at these type of minigames, as seen with how I had to get the easy mode sword to beat the true final boss in Blood Will Tell. I'm especially bad at them when they make you press the arrow buttons and the face buttons at the same time, so there is a good chance that people will just tell me, oh, it's not that hard, skill issue. I offhandedly mentioned you have other forms you can change into, and you may hope that they were Devil Trigger-like analogs, like I did, but sadly they aren't. They more so function like different weapons or styles. You have your Pumpkin King form, which gives you a flame breath attack that is also used to burn environmental objects blocking your path, along with an AoE blast on triangle. The unfortunate thing about this form is that it runs off an ammo system starting at 5. Each AoE attack costs 1, and using the breath attack slowly drains the number like a fuel gauge. The only two ways to refill it are buying more fuel at the shop for 10 orbs, or having an enemy drop a pickup for it, similar to the white orbs from DMC. The latter is very rare from my experience, so it mostly required me to backtrack whenever I needed it, and resulted in me not using the Pumpkin King form nearly as much as I wanted to, because what if I needed it later? Which ended up happening. The game doesn't allow you to access the shop between missions, so the only way to buy anything is to walk your goofy ass all the way back to town, which sometimes there are shortcuts, but otherwise you are wasting like 10 minutes going back and forth to get fuel and upgrades when you finally have enough orbs to spend. You are likely forfeiting a good time rating on whatever mission you choose to do this on. I really wish it ran off a refilling meter that went up from combat like Devil Trigger, because that would incentivize me to use it more and not just pack rat it away until absolutely needed. The Santa form is the weird one of the two. It's a form that throws present traps on the ground which detonate after a set amount of time, or by pressing L2. Initially, you only start with the Scare present, which is used to get enemies out of the Devil Trigger or Oogie mode as it's called in this game. It's wild that of all the systems and mechanics carried over from Devil May Cry 1, this is the one they chose to include in a children's game. The other two presents you can buy from the shop are the Ice one, which freezes enemies, and the Poison one, which deals damage over time. I hardly used the Poison one since it felt so out of the way to set up, and the Ice one is really strong even at level 1. Where you throw the presents is still determined by the auto lock arrow like everything else, so it often doesn't feel really smooth to use, especially when you have to throw it at these enemies hiding in pumpkins or garbage cans that will pop up up and smack you if you get too close. This is another point towards the weird hitboxes of this game where I swear I'm not close enough for them to hit me, but when they jump out I take damage every single time. The one upside is that you get these vials to restore your HP to full when drinking them. Think of it like your green star equivalent that doesn't penalize you for using them. You start out with one, but the blue orb equivalent, these skulls, allow you to craft more at the shop along with being able to buy some. You refill the vials at the town square fountain whenever you need to, so the cheap shots do feel a little less cheap when this happens, except when you're out of juice and you have to make a run back to the store for some more, then it gets annoying. The plot of this game is fairly simple. Oogie is back and this time he's trying to become the king of all holidays. He plans to do this by kidnapping all of the current kings and locking them up in his castle of Grayskull and stealing the doors to their realms so they can't get back. So Jack must stop him by collecting the 7 Dragon Balls and returning everyone to their rightful place. The one thing that is disappointing about this is that you get a door from each of the major boss fights, but you never actually go to the other worlds outside of Christmas Town for the last 2 chapters of the game. I would have loved to see a video game interpretation of what all of the worlds would have looked and played like. There is still plenty of variety in the locations present, it's just that this is the unfortunate unrealized potential of the game right up there with the air combat, because the one thing that does get pretty repetitive with this game, especially by the end, is boss fights. You're going to be fighting the spider and lock, stock, and barrel multiple times. There are a few unique ones, especially when in combination with the secret mission like putting the doctor to sleep if you get the soup, but yeah, maybe going to the other worlds would have spiced things up a little, even if monsters just ended up getting reskinned. The one thing I really like about this game's story is how it captures the townspeople's love for Jack. Everyone just genuinely really loves him, and it's sweet to see that in their interactions. The one thing I wasn't expecting in this game's story is that Jack basically gets sent to Oogie's Hell Castle and has to do a platforming challenge to escape, as if he was Kratos in God of War 1. This was probably the hardest section in the game for me outside of one of the others, which I'll get into in a minute. Because I had a hard time ascertaining depth in some of these camera shots, I would end up falling because I thought I would land on something only to realize, oh, there's a space there, and fall right into the lava. It seriously felt like my eyes were deceiving me in some of these camera angles. There was also the fact that Jack sometimes takes a few steps forward and slides when he stops moving, made me fall off ledges more than I would like to admit. The other segment that I had a real difficult time with was at the very end of the game where Jack has to go into the hinterlands. This area is initially monochrome and looks incredible. It's easily the best looking area in the game. It reminds me of some old black and white story picture books that I had as a child, along with the game Neverending Nightmare. It's my favorite area in the game, but the turkey door challenge is such a ball buster. You have to kill all of the enemies in a time limit, and my wrists were falling off by the end of it. Imagine having to mash the square button 200 times or more in the span of 2 minutes, and your hands are going to be hurting too. Is this what people who played Mario Party as a kid felt? This game has easily one of the best post-game unlocks with giving us Jack in pajamas. He's just an eepy little guy, and I love walking around with him in this outfit. Nightmare Before Christmas: Oogie's Revenge is at times an unfortunately simple action game from a studio whose prestige is incredibly depthful action games, but everything else around it carries this game so much for me in spite of it. I am extremely biased on this front and hold this game in higher regard than some other games on the PlayStation 2 action game list that suffer from the same problems, since this and Iron Giant were my 2 favorite movies growing up as a kid. And if you don't like that reviewer man is being swayed by childhood wonder and whimsy, then too bad, this is my video. The game is pretty short, only being about 8-ish hours, give or take. Mine took a little longer because I got lost in the hinterlands, because like the Monstro level in Kingdom Hearts 1, I have a hard time with areas that look visually very similar between each transition. I got zero sense of direction in mazes, especially if they are in the woods. I am very much strongly recommending this game to you on the strengths of its faithfulness to the IP. If you are even a little bit of a fan of the movie, then there is a lot to love about this game. If you've made it this far into the video, I just want to say thank you for watching as always. If you really liked the video, then please pass it around, leave a like, and maybe comment. If you really like the channel in this video series and want to see more like it, then maybe consider becoming a patron on Patreon. All patrons get access to videos a day early, along with a $3 tier to vote on upcoming multi-game reviews, and a $7 tier to view rough cuts of upcoming videos. I'm now going to shout out all of my $5 and up patrons who really help support the channel. Bully, Densha, Turbo Chicken, Scary Dinosaur, Burly, Chikun Cartoon Highwind, Dev Welkin, Fish Kami, Jordan Bennett, Kevin Velasquez, Kohai Carmen, Lotto, Maxi89C, Medi Not the Bad Guy, MGS Duh, Quartz, Samuel Egan, Sayin Heggy, Slemph Tingle, Metal Cactus, Friday Night Fragging, Alec Joseph, Ben Johnson, Ben Olberg, Buckets, Chichometrius, Cursed Void, Ek Frazo, Filthy Finger 69, Hardleg Joe, Jacob, Lazy Titan, Leon, Nicholas Pedinato, Pator Bursky, Sean the Berserker Fighter, Shisaji, Tabriz Sadiq, and Neutral Guy. Thanks so much, everyone. Sorry this didn't come out on Christmas like I originally wanted it to. I was rushing to get it done, but I simply was just feeling myself getting sick by staying up too long to try and rush it out, so I decided I'm done doing that. I feel the crunching of videos is actively starting to affect my health. As for what's coming out next, you know me, got a million videos half made and not done. Expect some slop videos just to get some uploads out there. Maybe some short impression videos on some new games that I finish. Like I started playing Space Marine 2 and I'm enjoying it enough, and maybe I'll do a short thoughts on video on it. Who knows? And as always, thank you for watching and see you next time.